Okay, I thought I would take you on a walk around the neighborhood to see what a war zone is like. If I walk too slow and you get a little bit bored, you can fast forward ahead. Straight ahead, down the hill, up the hill, across the railroad track is FAMU. The road that I'm on and the road that goes up the hill there is Martin Luther King until, probably 25 years ago, Martin Luther King stopped at the railroad track in the Black District, but then they moved it across the railroad tracks all the way through town. So now ML King goes a long ways. Here's one of the construction zones here. They were supposed to have it finished by August, but I think they missed that deadline. They wanted to make August because that's when they lease it for the school year, but they lollygagged around and missed it. Over here, the back side of this lot, which faces the railroad tracks right here, I don't think has ever been built on in the history of Tallahassee. I guess because it's on the railroad tracks. Over here used to be a house, but they tore that down for some reason. I don't know why. But they just, within the last week or so, started clearing this lot because they're going to put in apartments here. This road has really never been paved in any manner, but now these areas here, they're making them put big wide sidewalks in. So they leveling this. You can't tell how bad it was. This was a tornado came through here 2 or 3 years ago and tore down a lot of stuff, but this was so dense you really couldn't have walked through it. And so I guess in a week or so they'll have that finished, and then they'll do the site preparation for a set of apartments that are going in here. Not sure if they're going to be upscale or going to be like those. They're probably going to be like those for FSU students or maybe FAMU students, but they have a lot of digging out to do here because this is not a level lot, but that building up there is Richard Crow's. He's an architect, that's his building. But like I said, this was so densely, it was just terrible. Half the trees were laying on their side and so forth. So I'm guessing they're stopping about where this is. And I think the railroad owns all of this, so I don't know whether they're going to clear all of it or they're just going to clear through here. It looks like from what they're doing, they're just clearing through here. And maybe later they will take care of the rest. There's an example of a tree when the tornado came through that kind of leaning on its side. But this is what the whole lot looked like here before they started clearing it last week. But you can see how the road was never paved, but now this is coming in, the city will come in and pave this, and they're requiring them to do all kind of stuff along the railroad track side. The railroad is down about 8 or 10 feet, but there are trees that are blown over because of the tornado that came through. These cars are for the builders that you're going to let's see where they're building all around here. That building up there is the old Coca-Cola building. That was the Coca-Cola bottling plant probably till sometime in the 50s, because by the time we got here, they had a new building on Monroe Street, and this was turned into an ice house. Now it's just a flop house. But like I said, that section of the lot may be owned by somebody else. All this stuff here, the last thing we'll see on the walk is the apartment complex, the huge apartment complex they're building a block up. But this is all the supplies for that. They have a flatbed truck that they fill up every day with all these supplies and take up there. You can see part of the apartment up there. And he comes by my house probably every 30 minutes with all of that stuff. Because we have all these workers, we have all this noise because they like to all have loud trucks. If you went back 41 years when I moved in here, nobody rode through this area. I could go probably days without having anybody drive by my house. But now for the next year and a half, it's going to be constant. There are more of the building supplies. For the very big apartment that's going up a block from me. They've gone up 5 stories in about 3 or 4 weeks at the most. Now where all these people are going is only my guess. That's an old electrical supply building there, and I don't know whether, it seems like they may have a permit in to redo that whole building or maybe tear it down. I'm not sure which. The only person who's been here as long as me is Jeff. He has an auto body shop right here. He's, over the years, bought this whole half a block here. And he's a black guy about my age, very nice. He says he's going to let his kids worry about this. People keep approaching him to sell it, but he wants to work, so he's not. Now, that building ought to bring back memories because it used to have a lot of windows in it because that overlooks the train station. And when Dick was going home years ago, we sat in there and waited for the train one time. It was a nice little cafe. I don't know what it is now, probably a dump, but I've never been in there. The train, passenger train, when Katrina came and knocked out one of the bridges between here and New Orleans, they stopped the railroad, the passenger trains, which is kind of surprising because Jacksonville, you can't go from New Orleans to Jacksonville like you used to be able to. So now they've got the old waiting room boarded up and a sign that it's for sale. They have redone you can see the Seaboard Freight Station, but the city owns that now, so they've redone all of that. There's a new hotel. This is a relatively new hotel, probably 10 years. There's the newest one, probably 5 years, but across the street from that, right across the street from that, they've got plans for a new hotel of some type and another large student apartment complex. I'm assuming it's for FAMU students since it's across the railroad tracks. And you can see here they've torn up this street because they redid FAMU way down there to be a fancy street like they have Gaines Street down here. And so they wanted the connector street to be real fancy, so they tore this all up, and they're going to have trees and stuff in the middle and so forth. That's the other street going up into FAMU. This was all redone recently. This is another apartment complex that's started, and it being done by the people in the block that we're going to go by last. This isn't going to be quite as big, but it's going to be as tall. So that's another student housing apartment complex. Apparently they want to put those up because they make so much money on it. I guess what they do is they have 4 or 5 bedrooms off of a central living room. So everybody has their own private room and bath. And I think they charge, they said, like $800 a month for each one of the kids. They're making $3,000 or so a month an apartment. So they're building as fast as they can. A week ago, they had a raid by the customs people and rounded up about well over 100 illegals working. But I think they were working on a big project down the street. I don't think they got too many from my project. The city's been working on this 2-block road for, I'm guessing, well over a year. They aren't the quickest in the world. It's gonna be nice when they finish it. This Residence Inn has probably been here now 20 years. It's the first real construction on Gaines Street. Right down there, that apartment complex there, you can't tell, but that's opening, I'm guessing, in a couple of months. They have these everywhere around here now. Those buildings over there are all going to be level soon because that block, they have a approval for another apartment complex going there, probably 6 or 7 stories tall again. They'll tear that down. I don't know on this side what they're going to do, if they're going to do anything at all. Apparently these people held out against that apartment complex we just saw in the construction set. They may be stuck with these stumps, not be able to do anything with them because it's really too small to build anything real big on it. But this block over here apparently has been sold, going to have a permit to put in a place there. So we'll have construction for at least a couple of years. They've been working on the business building, Florida State Business Building, for about 2 years. And they're supposed to have the first classes in there, as I understand it, in January. It's a $200-something million building. If you want to see a fly-through of that building, you can go online and look at FSU School of Business. It's going to be the nicest building, the fanciest building on campus when it's finished. So they're just finishing up landscaping. I think they have a lot of work inside to do, but this is where they're going to put another apartment complex. And maybe here as well, I'm not sure. All these, you can see the other apartment complexes. If you look down Gaines, or I think this is Madison that we're coming up to, their apartment complexes are actually going on up all the way another block or two where the campus starts. It's wall-to-wall apartment complexes. That one's 5, so they'll be 5, 6 story tall, all the way to the stadium, which is 5 or 6 blocks away. So they put in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of apartments here, and this is where all the kids want to live because it's right next to campus, and it's next to what they call College Town, which is where they all go for their fun at night now. So there you can, I think if we get in the street, you can probably see the top of the stadium down there. Well, not quite, but, well, you can see a little bit of it. But again, both sides of the street are kind of looks like a little bit more buildings. So they're putting in the light fixtures. They just finished putting in the sidewalk, putting in the grass. I think they have a lot of work still to do inside the building, but most of the outside is complete, obviously. That's the women's basketball facility, maybe the men's practice, I'm not sure. On the back side of the Civic Center, which the county, I don't know whether they made FSU buy it or they gave it to them, but anyway, they got rid of that white elephant and put it on Florida State because Florida State's got state money and they can take care of it. So you can see all these old-fashioned lampposts in here. And I don't know if they're going to paint above those columns business so you can see it, but right now it's just carved in there and you can't even hardly see it. Same's true on the front. So they're doing all the planting of the palm trees and everything. There's the Civic Center. They didn't ask me, or I would have given them a good idea here. The business building's overlooking a park, but the street, Martin Luther King runs, as I said, all the way through town, but on the other side of the park, from my house, there's 2 blocks that are also called Martin Luther King, and then it stops here, and I would have suggested they tear down the wall to the park, slope it down and close that street, which has no use at all, and make it a nice entryway into the building, but of course nobody asked me. Straight ahead is the Firefighters Association. That's a relatively new building that was built, I think about it, I'll show you when you get up there, built to look like an old firehouse with the 2 big openings that look like that's where fire engines would come out of. People get real confused because they look for Martin Luther King if they're not careful, and they go on this side of the park and then wonder where it ends. They don't realize it's on both sides of the park. So there's the firefighters building. So if you look real close above the columns, you can see the word business, but I don't know if they're going to come in and paint it black or gold or something so people can see it, who knows. But right up here, this section at the top, I guess they're waiting for guardrails to come in because that's a terrace of some type. They can sit out and so yeah, if they had torn out this road, they could have made the park extend all the way into that, but maybe the city didn't want them to do that. On this side, they have another little terrace that sticks out and walk down there. Because this is the new apartment building going in. That's the parking lot. They put that out probably, I'm guessing, in 6 weeks because it came in Tinker Toy-like pieces. They had semis, flatbed semis coming one after another, bringing the pieces in, and then the crane just fit them together for the parking lot. Then they started framing out here probably 4 weeks ago. They've gone up, in 2 weeks, they've gone up from the first floor to the very top. That's going to be how tall it is. On this side, I understand there are going to be apartments that cover the parking lot. Now, why they're not covering it on Gaines Street, I don't know, but I think they're covering it on the back and they're covering it on the side over there, and I think this is just going to stand out like a sore thumb, but who knows. If you ride down Gaines Street now, you'll see 5 or 6 or 7 parking garages the same size. They don't They make them have plenty of parking, more than they need actually, so the cars are not all over the street. So here's another area. I think you're going to have a coffee shop, maybe a cafeteria, I don't know. So this apartment complex will be well stocked because everybody that goes to the business school is going to want to live there because they can just walk across the street to their classes. Otherwise, you're going to have to walk 6, 8, 10 blocks, sometimes more than that, to get to your classes, especially if they're on the other side of campus. You can see the tops of the roofs up there, which is all the red brick ones are FSU buildings. Another cannabis shop that's not doing anything. They all thought they were going to get approval to open up cannabis for recreational use, and they didn't, and now they're all sitting empty. And I guess they're waiting to get for the next election, I guess in a year or so from now. I think it's back on the ballot. They'll eventually wear people down and get approval for recreational use. So here's the building. Now they're building one. They're built all the way to the stadium on Gaines, except for the last 200 yards, I would say, and they just started that one about the time they started this. They have up the big parking lot, and they've gone up some, but that was where they ICE raided them and hauled off over 100 illegals last week. And so I don't know if they put a dent in their building. They haven't put a dent in this building because they're still moving ahead really fast. I'm assuming they're planning on being open a year from, well, probably about now, July maybe, because they won't definitely be open by August, so they can rent them for the, I guess that would be this 2005, 2006 fall session, I'm thinking. They've used every inch of this lot. But I think this is going to be one of the nicer ones. They actually, on the other side of this lot, they actually tore down a building that had been built only probably nice brick building, probably only 15 years or so ago. So they could have the whole lot. This, I'm not sure what they're going to do. Somebody sold off a couple of lots here, and they'll probably tear that down and build an apartment. When these people built these condos, not these that we're looking at, the ones behind them, they offered this guy like $500,000 for his lot. He owns half of this. He owned half of this. He didn't own the back half. I think they offered him $500,000, and he held out. He's since died, but now that you've got a piece of property that's not worth anything because it's not big enough to put anything real big on. So here's the back of this. You don't think these condo owners right here, this is an apartment here, but behind it is the condo behind my place. They're not sick because they used to have a full view out, and now they're blocked, and they are going to have, as I understand it, that's what all these pipes are for and everything. They are going to cover the back of the garage with apartments, so they'll be looking in the windows of apartments, but before they got a clear view. only ones that still have a good one are the ones at the end down here, because they overlook the park, so they dodge the bullet. But they've also got on this side of the building, they're going to have apartments covering the garage. There's the staircase. But they got all this covered with apartments. So yes, within there's one house they rent towards the east, which is the way I'm headed, over a couple of blocks, and there's just one house that they rent, kind of an uppy old house. But other than that, nobody lives within 4 or 5 blocks that way. They live down here some, but none of these buildings have been here except that big one that I mentioned, and nobody lived here. I'm the longest surviving resident around here, and going towards FAMU, obviously across the railroad tracks. They built that out. So north, east, south, and west. I'm the dean of the area. This is John's old office that's been fixed up very nicely inside, very nicely. When I first moved here 41 years ago, this street up where we're walking to now, the stop sign was here to Martin Luther King, which was called Boulevard Street. But this was not a street there. That street was not there, and the education building was not there. So they put that in probably 35 years ago. They had a nursery, old dilapidated nursery that they tore down and put this parking lot in here a few years ago. This apartment complex across the way was empty for probably the first 25 years that I lived here, and then they finally came in and rehabbed that. So it's now full. So as you can see, things have changed. Now if you go into FAMU, you could walk across the railroad tracks, although it's kind of hard to get down and up, but that's an absolutely spectacular area, because the central courtyard area there, FAMU probably has 5,000 students, I'm assuming, compared to probably 50,000 at FSU. But it's a well taken care of, and the central area is very nostalgic. It's like it's from the 50s, but it's totally kept up, so it's very nice. Well, I hope you enjoyed the little tour. That shows where I'm living. I'm hearing the birds now, but during the day, it's like I-95 with the trucks coming and going. All these workers want to have loud trucks. So there you have it. One of these days, in a couple of years, maybe I'll do a walkthrough and show you how it all turned out.